one of the first things I realized from the research was that humans are actually mostly naturally monogamous.
Mm.
When you go and look at the literature of hunter-gatherer societies, these are mobile bands. They are all monogamous.
Mm.
Everyone encounters they're monogamous. Now, when you start getting into primitive societies that are sedentary, okay, that stay in one location for a long time, then you do start to get kind of more and more polygamy.
Mm.
And so this is kind of the point of the book, is that once we transitioned from hunter-gatherer bands that were constantly on the move into more sedentary societies that were more wealthy, you ended up having a lot of stratification, you end up having a lot of division of labor, and you end up having a lot of slavery and polygamy.
Mm.
And so the second chapter of the book is called The Polygamous World Order. And this just is kind of like a tour of the world, going through India, China, Africa, Europe, showing that everywhere you go where there were people, where you had any type of large civilization, you had slavery and polygamy.
Mm.
This is true in Confucian China. This is true in Buddhist India and Hindu India. This is true, of course, in the Muslim world. And this is true in pagan Europe. When you look at the Vikings, they were Dublin is a slave city. That's how it was a slave port. That's how it was founded.
Mm.
That was all done by the Vikings. And then, so you really don't have a return to monogamy until Christianity. Now, a lot of people say, what about the Greeks and the Romans? Weren't they monogamous? And kind of, yes. And the roots of Christian monogamy do come out of first Greek and then Roman monogamy. But Greek and Roman monogamy, as was practiced, would not be recognizable as monogamy to us today. Greek and Roman monogamy was, as I call it, a unilateral monogamy. So if you were a Roman citizen, you were a man, you could not have sex with another citizen's wife, okay? But every other woman and child and unfortunately young boy out there was fair game,
Mm.
okay? So prostitution was very much encouraged. It was legalized and taxed. Non-wealthy men would go to prostitution houses and basically pay wealthier men to have sex with their slaves. Wealthier men, of course, had just concubines they could keep for their own personal use. And this was just the way of the world. There was no idea of sexual sin. There was no idea that it was wrong for a man to force another human being to have sex with him. That was just not part of the moral thinking. Now, if a Roman citizen went and raped another man's daughter, that was bad, right? But that was more of a property crime between the men. It would be the same as one Roman man going and stealing another man's sheep, right?
Mm.
It's not that there's any, problem with the sheep didn't consent. It's that you stole another dude's sheep. And that was the same kind of mindset when it came to sexual crimes of the day. But that then changed with Christianity, right? For the first time, you have an equal human dignity between all people, between rich and poor, between men and women. And so, in 1 Corinthians, you have Paul talking about how the husband has authority over his wife's body, and that you find throughout the world. That is common throughout the polygamous world. But then you have Paul say that the wife has equal authority over the husband's body, and that's the revolutionary idea, that the wife has equal authority over the husband's body. And so that is what makes monogamy, the Christian monogamy, equal. It's a reciprocal monogamy. And that was truly revolutionary. Okay. And so once you have this idea of this monogamous couple standing, the church really protects and spreads this idea. And so there's a number of policies that they go through that really kind of broke down this polygamy world. And one was, of course, a ban on polygamy. That'd be step one. You can only marry one person, marry one woman in case of man. But then you also have a ban on inheritance for illegitimate offspring. There was no kind of idea of bastards or anything else before you had the church.
You said a ban on them inheriting the family's wealth if they were illegitimate. Okay,
correct.
That was new.
That was new. Okay. The Greeks also had it. We can get into that, but yes, like the Greek idea of monogamy, the Christian idea of on monogamy came out of the Greek. So the Greeks did have that beforehand, but that was something that the church definitely reinforced.
Yeah.
And then you had, of course, a ban on arranged marriages, which was very new. I mean, Roman society was all about the head patriarch. You could not get married just whoever you wanted if you were a Roman citizen. You had to get the patriarch's permission to get married. The church was very much against that. The church was very much in order to be valid, a marriage had to be consensual between both parties.
Okay.
That's the third item, was a ban on arranged marriages. And then the fourth item was kind of a way of helping that ban along, which is a ban on cousin marriages.
Yes.
Because very often cousin marriages were just arranged marriages that were disguised. And this was a common practice, a way to keep wealth within large patriarchal families. And so, not that this wasn't the intent of the church, but these four policies ended up breaking down patriarchal clan-based power structures.
Yep.
Okay. And what rose up in its place were more of like voluntary civil society structures, guilds, universities, towns, etc. And that, kind of burgeoning nuclear family-based civil society, that becomes then the foundation for, democracy, and then the Industrial Revolution and all the great wealth that we see in the Western world today.
So I know that some have argued that fourth move, the ban that the Catholic Church made about cousin marriage, they went all the way down to, what was it, the seventh generation? It was a pretty extensive. It wasn't just like first or second cousins. Yeah.
Right. And so this, of course, these policies change over time, and they're enforced differently in different areas. So yes, I mean, it does depend on kind of what year you're talking about. But I mean, just to be totally clear, this family marriage program, this is not something I came up with. I stole this. Now, when I say stole, it's footnoted in the book, and I mentioned his name. But that Joseph Heinrich is a professor at Harvard. He's the one that kind of came up with this idea of the marriage family program, and he has this great study that looks at the number of years that the church effectively enforced these four policies throughout Europe, and he shows that there was a lot less cousin marriages in all of those places where it had it, and more importantly, those places where the family marriage program was enforced for longer have higher trust among strangers, has more, or less deference to authority, more individualism, those kind of values that ended up being so important for democracy and the Industrial Revolution.
Yeah.